thank you for the opportunity to have a follow-up conversation on student debt. Many students incur their own debt in order to acquire a degree from one of your institutions. And this isn't the first time we've had this conversation, but I really wanted to follow up and talk about return on investment. And I think it's very heartening to hear of your efforts of getting students through in 4 years, and some of the innovative programs and lower cost housing, and all of those are really important. But I think students need to look at the price tag and weigh that return on investment. And to help our students, our parents, our taxpayers, our constituents understand what your institution is doing to help them answer that return on investment question. So can you speak about the measures that you have in place to track job placement? Are folks entering the field of study when they graduate and find an occupation? And are those figures publicly accessible to individuals trying to decide if they want to attend one of your institutions? And if they are, where can they find them?
Senator, let me start on this one. I think this is really the key question, right? So as long as a country, we share the burden between students paying for part of an education and public support for the rest, we're always going to have this question of how it's financed and what that ROI is, what that return on investment is. What I would say is there's good data and the data is not good enough. So I'm going to give you both a glass half full and a glass half empty story. On the good side of the story, universities see what happens pretty close to the point of graduation. So we know that, for example, the 6-month placement rate for grads from the University of Pittsburgh is about 94%. That means recent graduates from the University of Pittsburgh are either in work or pursuing more education 6 months after graduation. That's one of the key measures that we measure every year and report on a by-campus basis. And that's a great story, and you might imagine we'd be happy to sort of pat ourselves on the back. But I would say there's a growing realization that that's not enough. And what I would point to is that, that from the point of graduation to the point of being in a career path doesn't happen in the first 6 months after you graduate. There's a window of what I would call pre-employment, where students are still trying jobs, they're still fine-tuning what they're going to be doing. And we know this because degrees don't match career paths that well in all cases, right? So we know that there's a mobility that happens. And that's one of the reasons why when you look at help wanted ads, most employers have this sort of 2 years of experience requirement. That's a shorthand for something is missing beyond the degree, this sort of portfolio of work. And so what I think what we're looking at is extending the university's responsibility past the point of graduation, extending our job services, our employment service offices, so that as a recent grad, you continue to benefit from the university's network with employers, with being able to find a job opportunity and job counseling, that we are aware of your financial needs even after graduation, and need-based loan repayment and loan repayment support can be made availability. I just think that universities will have to lean into that early and fragile career phase if we're going to make sure that students don't fall off and don't realize that return on investment. Because we know at the macroscopic level, it's an incredibly smart investment. Students, by and large, with college degrees will outperform those that don't by very large fractions. But if that's not true on a student-by-student case, then we have a problem.
I think that's very helpful. I guess, is there some way that you can determine, make a threshold cost-benefit calculation on whether or not to continue to offer or drop a subject or a major if we're educating students and we're not aligning that education with opportunities in the workforce? I think it makes it really difficult for students to make that investment in, and it's a significant investment. Do you look at potentially altering your course offerings based on the needs of the marketplace to align students and careers?
So can I just add a little something? So first of all, just as a historical point, we have a Black middle class because we have historically Black colleges, and historically Black colleges continue to outperform their counterparts with regard to African American graduates and their success post-college, um, even though they're only 3% of all higher education institutions. When it comes to aligning courses with jobs, think if we really look at all of the data and the surveys of most people who are in the hiring position, the idea that you can really align your courses with the workforce does not necessarily capture how dynamic this workforce is. And so a lot of what employers are looking for today are graduates who have strong essential skills. And those essential skills, your communication, your quantitative skills, your scientific literacy skills, and on, critical thinking, problem solving, can actually be cultivated, developed, and honed within across all different kinds of majors. And so I think one of the things that higher education is really focused on today is really creating those kind of college graduates, regardless of their course of study, who are able to take advantage of a very dynamic, disruptive market where the major success is based upon your ability to tool and retool as that market changes. And the best predictor of that is your intellectual strength and your interpersonal savvy that will allow you to take advantages wherever they are.
I would
Thank
say
you.
that I would say that the correlation between the quality of the institution and recognition of the degree is probably far more important than the specific major. So we've consistently been in the top 5 where corporate recruiters come. They see well-rounded students, well-educated students, and are hiring across the spectrum of degrees. So we see a high level of success based on critical thinking skills, communication skills. Yes, an engineer will end up making more, but these students are quite successful, and we see them get great jobs and have tremendous success. Although we have a lot of information that's available for a student to decide on what it is that they want to study and what those job opportunities are, I would say that the institutions that are represented in this Zoom call, their reputation for the quality of education and the success of their students is probably a bigger governing factor in the value of their degree because they're high quality students that go off and be successful. We actually see this in terms of the number of students that are in the lower 20% of family income that a degree from, I know the numbers from an AAU institution is that 45% of them can end up post-graduation in the top 20% of family income. Whereas if you only have a high school degree, you have almost no chance of entering that level. So we see a lot of data like that as well. But I would also add that Penn State's part of a study between the Census Bureau and the Pennsylvania Department of Labor to actually study this in detail with our alumni and called We Earn, with Penn State alumni working and earning in Pennsylvania. So this is a topic of considerable study, but I think we have a really good story to tell on the value of our degrees.
Thank you.
And Senator, if I could add just very briefly, echo everything that everyone else said, but bottom line, the research is very clear. Simply getting a degree and doing it in 4 years adds terrifically to the return on investment for the individual. And the research is clear.
Thank you. And as a quick follow-up, Pennsylvania Act 121 was signed into law October 24th of 2018, requires institutions of higher education to send annual letters to students with information on their student loan debt, including estimates of their total debt at graduation and estimated monthly payments. Has this been helpful to your students in terms of assuring that they are better informed on their financial burdens and obligations? And has this assisted you in addressing academic programming for your students?
I think it is helpful, but I think even more so is the investment that we're making in financial literacy tools so that students can not just see the number, but they can actively be a partner with us in reducing what that debt load. I mean, I think we see over and over again, graduate in 4, student debt is remarkably lower.
Thank you. Thank you, Senator.